Hey everyone, I'm Josh Loftus, and this is the Everyday and Monday podcast, the podcast where we talk about everyday people doing everyday things in everyday churches. Whether you're a pastor, a plumber, or that person that thinks it's okay to listen to Christmas music before Thanksgiving, this podcast is for you. This is where we find value in the trenches of Christian life. Welcome to Everyday a Monday, and with me in the trenches today, I have a very special guest. He's the pastor at Substance Church in Ashland, Ohio. He's the voice and talent behind the music of Joy Electric and Said Fantasy, and he's one of the co-hosts of the Happy Rant podcast. I have the Right Honorable Reverend Ronnie Martin with me today. Mr. Martin, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. We really appreciate it. Before we get going here, I'm going to just right off the bat throw you into a counseling situation, right? So I invite you on the podcast. I'm going to throw you into a situation here.
Oh, man. Okay.
I know. I'm sorry. And the question is this. At what point in the year is it okay to start, morally, is it okay to start playing Christmas music? I'm going to throw the word morally in there because I think this is a moral issue.
Well, it just keeps getting earlier, doesn't it? I feel like people are not respecting traditions. So here's how we do it. We begin full time with it the day after Thanksgiving, which is affectionately in our household known as Tree Day, because that's when we do all of our tree decorating and our house decorating. So that's when it starts full time. And I'm such a Christmas guy that it just that full time literally means it's going pretty around the clock up until Christmas Day. Right. But because of that, because of how unique it is to have that kind of music during that season for that entire month, to have it kind of going, in October and early November, it would just take away from I think the general gaiety of the season, as Charles Dickens would say.
Yes, as Charles Dickens would say. Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, I completely agree. Thank you for settling that argument. I will be sure to tell the people that I'm right. So,
well, we settled it between us. I mean, that's
fair.
It's kind of the whole Christmas in July thing, and now you got guys. It's like October 1st, and they're they got their tree up and they're tinseling the staircase, and it's like I feel like there should be a law against that.
Well, it's kind of turned into those people around the neighborhood that just keep their lights up year round because, in all honesty, they're probably too lazy to take them down. It's become just kind of that normality, like, oh no, that's okay. We're actually just in the spirit of Christmas all year round.
I know, and it's incredibly offensive, isn't it? It's incredibly offensive.
It's incredibly offensive. Yes, it is. Yeah, there's nothing much more that offends me than that. That is for sure. Well, I appreciate you settling that, at least between us. I will make sure to pass on the words of wisdom to those that need it.
Excellent.
Mainly my wife, if we're going to be honest. She's it's always a time of tension right around Thanksgiving, but that's okay. We work through it. Good. So, Ronnie, before we hop into the topics here, can you just give us a quick bio of who you are, what you do, married, kids, what you do for a living, little known fun fact. Just tell us a little bit about you, my friend.
Yeah, so I've been married to Melissa almost 25 years, and we about 10 years ago we also have a daughter who is 23 years old.
Very cool.
She lives and works in Denver, and of course we're in Ohio. We're in mid Ohio now. Yeah. We relocated from California to Ohio almost a decade ago, and we ended up planting now, getting ready to plant our third church here. And so God just kind of brought me out of a long run in the music industry, making records, producing other records, running a record label at one point for a few years, going on tour, doing all of those types of things that tend to go with that territory, and then brought us into ministry. At this point, almost, between 15 and 20 years ago. And then, just slowly kind of opened up a pathway for us to, become church planners. And so that's what we're doing now full time. And we're doing a lot of work with the church planning network that we're part of called Sojourn. And we're really involved in the denomination that we're part of, the Evangelical Free Church of America. And so we just have I just have a plethora of things that I'm doing in terms of ministry and church planning and everything that's tied into that. Yeah. So
very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. So being the pastor there at Substance, planting your third church now, which is fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
What would you consider being both the best and I don't want to say the worst, but perhaps the hardest part of being anybody who's in ministry knows. Yeah. Don't say worst, but the best and perhaps hardest part of being a pastor there, and perhaps being even a church planting pastor, because I know that brings a lot of different mentalities to it. Well,
it's a great question. It's hard to answer too. The blessings of pastoring, you get to enter into people's lives. You get to enter into their pain. You get to preach the gospel. Depending on your giftings and the kind of pastor you are. For me, man, I really enjoy preaching. I really enjoy, pastoring other pastors. That's just a joy for me. I really, really enjoy that. I think some of the hardest. I think one of the hardest things about this is just the fear that goes into just this role and this position, and you carry a lot of weight, and with that weight comes a particular kind of fear that can sometimes blossom and grow wider and taller in your life until it becomes this this monster in some ways. And so I think the fear and the inadequacy that comes for most pastors, especially ones that are planting and they're having to do everything, at some point until they're, they can grow to a place where they can start bringing people in, whether it's a staff or, a lay staff. And so you're wearing so many hats. Sure. And there is just there's an overwhelmingness to it that I think really just causes, your fear meter to be, pinging quite a bit. And so I think that's been one of the hardest things for me, is just the fear and the weight that compounds the fear.
Sure. So pastor now, career in a successful career in the Christian music industry. Give us just a little bit of how Christ found you. I don't know if you grew up in a Christian home or if you had kind of a date and time where you point at and we're like, at this point, my eyes were opened, which some people do. I don't. Some people told me I'm not saved, but I'm not going to take that. Right? Give us just a little bit of how Christ found you and what that process looked like for you.
Yeah, and that's a good question. My parents. I was born into a Catholic family and in Southern California, and my parents definitely did not know the Lord. My mom actually. Through really just the sharing of the gospel of her neighbor, who became a close friend of hers, shared the gospel with her, brought her to this church, and my mom ends up getting saved. And then about a year later, my dad was saved as well. And then at that point, I have an older brother and sister that are about 10 years older than me. So we have this strange family where older brother and sister, and then it's me, and then my younger brother, 2 years younger than me, and then a younger sister that came along 6 years
so you're
after.
Right in the middle.
I'm the dead middle guy.
You're the dead middle guy.
Yeah, and I put the word dead in there on purpose.
Yeah. No issues there whatsoever.
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. It's just coming out in every area of my life now. But the dead middle guy. But what was interesting about it was both my brother and my sister, my older brother and sister, were out of the house at a young age. Okay. And so really from about the age of 7 on, I was kind of the oldest, of my brother and sister. So the rest of my life was just kind of spent being like the older kid in the house. Yeah. So it was a strange dual existence in some ways. But nevertheless, the household my older brother and sister grew up in was a lot different than the one that I grew up in, right? So mom and dad come to know Christ, and then everything changes. And we just get immersed just totally and completely and fully into church culture. So everything is church. I mean, everything is Christian. So Christian music, Christian church, Christian school, Christian clothing, Christian food, Christian branded everything.
Christian food.
I mean, it was,
So is it like stale and kind of off-brand? Like, is that what?
No,
what are we talking about here, Christian?
Well,
food?
it's like the early '80s, right? And mom is like, we're not eating sugary cereals or like, so she's everything. We're going like wheat bread, and we're doing everything more natural and all this stuff. So that's why I call it Christian food. You know,
nothing about that Jesus would sign off on.
I really believe he wouldn't. But so everything kind of changed, and that's what kind of formed our lives. And then around 7 years old, I think I had it's hard to say when you're young, right? But I think I had a legitimate, conversion experience with Jesus, and I recognized sin and the cross, and I think, my life was really formed from that over the next probably 8 or 9 years. And then, just had some dark valley times in my late teens, up until the time I got married in my early 20s, and then God did sort of another like revision and a revamping work, which he tends to do, where he sort of drags you out of your nominalism, and he wakes you up. He kind of slaps you across the face and wakes you up, and you feel that conviction, and you're brought to some tears, and you don't want to keep living the way you're living, and it's so in some ways it's either proof that you were already saved, or maybe you're being saved.
Yeah,
in that moment. So I don't know. I mean, there had been fruit in my life over the years in some areas, so I really don't know, and I'm not really too concerned about it. But the Lord started doing a work early in my wife and I's marriage that just continued, and then again eventually brought us into ministry. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, Christian food, I'm gonna have to start looking into that, because that's interesting. Like we need to get our own brand. We need to start. You got the Western Family brand, Kirkland brand, Christian brand.
Christian food. Somebody is missing out on millions upon millions.
There is an opportunity here, people.
100%.
People will buy it. The T-shirts 100%. Will flow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Ronnie, we're going to transition a little bit into just kind of the main point of the podcast, which is bringing back the importance and value of serving and getting plugged into the local community of the church. Yeah. Right. And this is the question: is what is one aspect of your church, their substance, that you really, really appreciate, really, really value, and that if it was your first Sunday, it would be this thing that would make you come back?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good, man. I think for us, it's hospitality. I think we led with hospitality. It's from the very beginning, it was let's be the warmest and the friendliest church in our town if we can, because a lot of the experiences that you hear about happening. I mean, I've been at this church for 4 months. Nobody said hi to me. Yeah. I come in, I walk in, nobody looks at me.
Right.
And so I remember when we were first getting ready to plant, and we're having all these conversations, about our vision and our values, and I just kept hammering away at that. Yeah. And I said, hey, we need to be an inviting and a welcoming church. It doesn't mean we're going to agree with everybody. Right. But the one thing that it's going to be hard for them to be upset by is hospitality, is kindness. So the world is going to have a really, really hard time pushing back on you because you're too kind to them.
It's true.
Even though you may disagree with a particular position they hold or a lifestyle, or something that you don't, in good conscience, can't affirm because of Scripture. And so to me, it was like let's be warm, let's be inviting, let's be friendly, let's show the love of Christ through sort of this lavish generosity of spirit, and do our best with that. And so I think that's the thing that sticks out, and when people come, that's usually the thing they talk about. This is one of the friendliest places, and I immediately felt at home. That's always music to my ears, And again, they're going to hear the gospel, in the midst of all that, of course. But just knowing that they feel like immediately they have family, I think has been pretty key for us.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic to hear. Especially in some of the more reformed culture, I guess you could say, and the circles that we run in, we have a tendency to add hot sauce to the gospel when we don't need to, right? Yeah. Like it's already offensive enough. We don't need to add our own spices to it, right? And
well, it's interesting you say that, because we have always bringing up the R word.
Yes, yeah.
We had somebody once call us. They said, "You guys are Reformed light," and I said. That's kind of a Christian food analogy, I guess, in some ways, right?
Oh man, okay, I'm writing these down, man. It's the T-shirts are already printed.
They're already printed, right? They're
Reformed Light. Yeah,
but,
it's like that '90s T-shirt campaign with
the worst.
Stealing people's logos.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this blood's for you. No, but I took that as a compliment, right? Because we don't wear the R word. We don't have a cape with a big capital R.
Right.
It's always been small R Reformed for me. It's just going to come out in the preaching, and I never use the word or any of that. It really comes out in our soteriology and big view of God, sovereignty, and those types of things, grace.
Yep.
But it's interesting because I don't want that to be a preventative marker of our church. Like, man, we hold so hard to this doctrine that it makes us hard.
First Church of Calvin, right?
Yeah, 100%, exactly. So
no, I completely agree with that. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, I think that's really, really good. Out in the Seattle area, for sure, service outside of the church is not really a thing that happens. It does in many churches for sure, but it's definitely not kind of the overwhelming view of the church. Community and service and getting plugged into church it's just not on the top of people's list, right? And it's not even something that when they think about church, sadly, it's not something that's like, okay, we're going to go to church. And then the most important thing that we can be doing is getting plugged in, is getting to know people, get into the small groups, get into the community groups, get into the service opportunities, because that's how we grow, right? And that's what the Lord uses. So how would you go about counseling somebody or encouraging somebody who comes to you and says, Pastor Ronnie, I don't see the value, and I don't understand why it's important to get plugged in and to serve in church, right? I don't understand why that's something that is valuable to do. Where would you take an individual that comes to you with that concern?
Well, yeah, you would have to say, well, you must read the New Testament and the Gospels and kind of chart the course of the life of Jesus and really disagree with the way he lived at that point then, Right. I think it's just, it has to, when we have been, when the Holy Spirit enters our hearts, upon regeneration, there is a love for Christ that has to flow out, into a love for one another and then a love for our neighbors. Yeah. And so there's something we got to go a little bit beneath the surface and find out what's going on in your heart for you to think that, man, there's nothing inside of you that feels any sort of draw or compulsion. And I would say that in a good way, right? Compulsion is probably the wrong word, but to love your neighbors and to serve your church family. So I think that there's going to be something there that needs to be addressed. Mm-hmm. And there might be some hurt there. There might be some woundedness. There's probably some fear there that's saying, hey, if I put myself out there, there's an opportunity and a risk for me to be rejected or hurt. So I would want to unpack that to the best of our ability and say, hey, this is a safe place to serve and give yourself away to other people. And again, that doesn't mean it doesn't come with pain, because all serving comes with pain. Right. And we see that, in the way that Jesus served us. It was incredibly painful, in the very end, especially. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. Yeah. It does. Fantastic. Right. And then that leads into, like, once that's unpacked, and once you begin to show the individual the joys and the pains, for sure, but such the joy and the encouragement that comes with being in community with each other, right? We can begin to foster both good motives and bad motives for serving. I know in my life I've had moments where my service in church was pure and good, and then probably 90% of the time it's a bad motivation that I'm in there serving, whatever it is, whether it doesn't matter, serving on the music team or serving in hospitality, whatever it is, right? What would you say are some both good and bad motivations for serving in church?
Yeah, well, I think, a lot of serving can be guilt driven. We feel like this is what we're supposed to do, and so here comes the better use of the word. We do it under compulsion, rather than with a gratefulness towards God, and just with a heart that's overflowing with thankfulness, and just wants to recognize that everything I have, I don't own. I'm a steward of these things. So that includes the gifts I've been given, the money I've been given, the time I've been given. So man, how can I use that for the kingdom? And so I think but that even in and of itself, because you're hearing the guys on the platform every day, again, we're not a Baptist church, so I'm not killing everybody every week with that stuff. So I don't have that obligatory Baptist thing where I got to pound the pulpit and I got to do all that, But for all of you brothers that do, and by the way, let me just mention that, man. So many great things happening right now with the whole Baptist thing, and so many encouraging movements. It's a great time to be alive and be a Baptist.
It's a great time to be a Baptist. Oh man, those Baptists got it going on.
Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. But anyway,
well, I will too. We'll go down together.
But so I think guilt can be a massive motivator. I also think especially people that start serving in ways that are a little more a little more visible. There can be an ego attached to that, and then we start to identify with totally. Who we are, our position at a church, our title. Hey, I'm the guy that leads worship. I'm on the platform. I'm on the platform more than the pastor if he would just preach under 40 minutes.
Leader. No. And being in anything that resembles what a Reformed church at all, 40 minutes does not happen. I'm sorry. It is 40, 50 plus. That's
why we're Reformed light, because I keep it under 40.
Dude, that's why. Okay, that's why you're Reformed light. Okay, makes sense.
We're Reformed light, like, I don't know, maybe you've heard of a guy named Tim Keller. Preaches under 40.
Once in a while I've heard of his name. Yeah. I've heard the name dropped once in a while. Yeah. All right, Reformed Light. I'm going with that one. That's hashtag Reformed Light.
Nice.
I like that a lot. So Ronnie, when talking about the encouragement and the joy and the accountability that comes from serving in church, some of the greatest moments of joy for me, especially serving in church, is seeing the other saints who are serving selflessly, who give of their time, their treasure, their talents, and just give of themselves with no room in their minds for how this is making them look or what they can get out of it. It's those Christians that just, man, like, I want to be like them. Like, ultimately, yes, we want to be like Jesus, but he gives us people that we look at. They're like, I want to be like that person. The question is, one, who are those Christians for you that inspire, whether it's people that are in your church right now or people that you've read or listened to, whatever the case, who are those Christians for you, and what are the traits that they possess that really spur you on to want to follow Christ harder and faster than you do now?
Well, I think it's you just described it. It's these, what I like to call like these behind the scene people that just, they just, you can sense this joy that they have in serving. You hear about ways that they serve that you didn't even realize they were serving.
I know.
And, especially if it's stuff that's more like, oh, did you know that so-and-so has been meeting with so-and-so for the last 6 months? They meet every Monday at this coffee shop at 6 a.m. before they go to work, and they've been going through this particular book and praying together. It's like, man, I didn't even know that. I mean, that's so encouraging because, we don't have a program for that. This brother or this sister just took it upon themselves because they have a love for other people in our church family or their neighbors or beyond. And but I think it's something that's catching in a congregation, isn't it? When you find out that people are serving and they're not doing it in an obligatory way, and they really are doing it because they really find their joy in that. And there's something that really just sticks out about that, even when they do it in a way to be as unnoticed as possible. And it always just kind of floors you, I think, inspires you.
Well, it does. And I think you nailed it too. It is catchy, right? And I mean, all of those people that you see, that you admire, that are serving, have been served at a time in their life.
Yeah,
right?
They've had it modeled.
They've had it modeled for them, right?
That's a great point.
And it's just kind of this. I think a culture of discipleship is something that's kind of lost, perhaps, in a lot of our church culture today.
Yeah.
Kind of the older discipling the younger and being an example and come alongside them and showing them the ways of the faith, right? And I think we see that. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's a form of discipleship, right?
Absolutely.
And when people are serving and giving of themselves, that is inspiring. It's inspiring to me to be like, you know what? I need to put myself away. I need to put away my arrogance and my pride and my desire to be seen and be okay with coming in on Friday night when nobody's there and cleaning the bathrooms.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? So that they can be clean for the people that are coming in on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to get to a point, and I have had that in my life, and I want it more to where I have a joy to do that. I have a desire to do that. Right. And that's hard for so many people, me included. But I think those people that we're talking about that we see that have that joy and have that love, and they're like, give me the toilet brush. I'm going to go in there and clean this because it's an opportunity to serve the church. Right. And it's mind blowing when I see that. And I absolutely love it. There's nothing better.
Yeah. Amen.
All right. So Ronnie, coming into, you've been in ministry a long time. Right. And anybody who's been in ministry for really any amount of time has those stories, right? They have those unforgettable moments. They have the hilarious incidents that happen that we can't talk about at all unless you're being asked about it on a podcast. Right. So my question to you is what is one of the most funniest or most unforgettable church experiences you have ever had?
Oh man! Josh, whenever somebody asks me that, I blank out.
It's not completely. A favorite question.
No, I would love. You know what I need to have? I need to have kind of my stock answer of like the craziest church experience I've
Has anybody gotten up in church, like in the middle of service, started like yelling at you?
Here's one for you. No, nothing that great. I'm always waiting for that one. Well, here's something crazy. So I was this was at another church I was at back in the day on staff at, and this was an older church, so they had wait for it, decorating committee.
Oh, sweet doilies.
Yeah. It was all doilies, and it was the doily committee
and pin art. Yeah.
Oh man, on a good day, and
on a good day.
So the two women that led this, no surprise, were I think 80 and 83 years old.
Oh, at least. One of them was named Doris.
Right, they were probably 90, and they were lying and saying they were 80 because they wanted to be younger.
Doris and Adeline. Yep.
Yeah,
basically, church.
You know what? I'm not going to say the names, but you're so spot on, dude, that it's, you know what I mean? We can almost just say those were the names, right?
We're just going to go with that. The names may or may not have been changed to protect the innocent.
Totally. So they did this thing where they would put out these really bad like vinyl flowers all over the stage.
Oh, the fake flowers. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Hey, they probably make some really nice fake flowers these days, except these ones were made like back in 1968.
Yeah.
So they weren't probably more the modern ones that like look exactly like real flowers now, right? Yeah. So this thing was so out of control, and we're trying to, we're trying to, they sort of tasked me to modernize the sanctuary.
Okay.
Go minimal on some things.
It's like, so please make it look like we're not having a funeral every Sunday.
Literally, right? you could not have said it better, right?
Okay.
So at some point, man, they have just like roomfuls of these flowers. It is like a mortuary behind the stage,
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, so we're gonna have to knock out those flowers. No more flowers. We can have like living flowers if somebody wants to bring in like a big vase of something beautiful and water them. Yeah, for sure. Right. I said nobody's opposed to that. I go, but all these fake flowers, I go, it's out of control. So I basically put out the word, and then they call a meeting. Doris and what was the other name you had for?
Adeline.
So Doris and Adeline.
Yeah.
So I sit down. I have the executive pastor with me in the meeting because I don't know why he's there, but I'm thinking if he's there,
you need him for
something's
accountability,
not
man.
good.
Yeah,
right?
Something's about to go down.
So this woman, she goes, and again, I'm not even that young, but she's looking at me like I'm 16 years old,
young
right?
whippersnapper moving our flowers.
Exactly. And she looks at me and she goes, listen, she goes, if you're smart, Ronnie, how did she phrase it? She said, if you're smart, you're going to recognize that some of the older people in this congregation, and she started doing that thing with her fingers, like the hip hop move, like with the cash. She says, we're She goes, we're the ones that are like paying the salaries and like, putting the cash in the
goodness,
in the basket on Sundays,
she
like
just
that.
pulled a mob boss on you.
She pulled a mob boss money finger, kind of move on me. And I'm looking at her and she's literally saying this and doing like, it's unbelievable that she's doing the thing with her fingers, and she's saying hey, Sonny, like, you better watch what you're saying because we're the ones that are, like, contributing all the funding to this church. And I'm looking over at the XP, right? And I'm waiting for this guy to speak up and go, oh, no, we don't operate like that. And he's silent, man. He's just sitting there quiet. He's
backup.
No backup, zero backup. So I'm looking at her, I'm looking at him, and I'm kind of new. I haven't been there that long. And I'm like, oh, what do I do with this? So I look at him. He's still not saying anything. I look at Money Fingers. She's still making the thing, doing the gesture.
Money Fingers Adeline.
Yeah, Money Fingers Adeline.
It's her mob name.
And I said, you know what? I go, if you think by doing that thing with your fingers and the money is actually ever going to change anybody's opinion on staff on how we're going to move forward with things that we want to move forward, I go, I think you're sadly mistaken. And I look.
Please tell me you said those exact words.
Yes, pretty close. And I look over at XP, and there's just fear in his eyes at that point.
Like I'm gonna get a horse head with flowers in my bed tonight.
I mean, pretty much. But now I'm thinking, okay, you just said the wrong thing to her, which was the right thing, I think. Yeah. But now you're gonna get the wrath of the XP because he's gonna be like, dude, no, they really do pay a lot of, they really.
You and I are out of a job.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyway, so they leave, and I look over at XP, and I'm like, hey, by the way, thank you, and by thank you I mean no thank you for all the show for the big show of support there, pal. And
butter knees. Come on, man.
I said let me just jump the gun here. You're upset that I confronted her, and I said no, you can't do Money Fingers with us. That's never gonna work. He's all no, I totally agree. And I said, well, thanks for speaking up then, man, in agreement. I said thank you.
I just thought you were doing fine. I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, suffice to say, I wasn't there very long. So
goodness gracious, that's awesome.
Fingers, Josh. That's all you have to remember.
Money Fingers, baby. That Money Fingers make the church world go round. That is for sure. Don't make Doris mad. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Oh man. Okay. Well, Ronnie, we have come almost to the end of the podcast, but it is time now for the Monday hot takes. And this is when I ask you a whole bunch of random questions and you give me the first thing that pops into your head. You ready for these?
I think so.
Okay, sounds good. All right. And I have, just so you know, I want you to know, because I am a fan of this other podcast that you are on.
Okay.
I have taken out all of what is your favorite questions just for you. Okay.
Because I blank out?
Because I remember you specifically saying, I hate what is your favorite questions?
Well, I just, it's not that I hate them. I just get tongue-tied. I don't know what it is.
So we're going to try to make it more like present experiential questions.
Okay, sure. Right? Whatever you want. I'm open to anything, man.
Okay.
Roll with what you
We'll go with it. Okay. Let's see. What is one band or musical artist you are really enjoying right now?
I mean, that's essentially a favorite question, Josh.
No. It's current. What are you listening to right now?
Right now in my player is a band called Zeno and Oaklander. They're just like this real indie, nobody's ever heard of them, electronic duo.
Okay. All right.
So there you go.
That works. That's where I guarantee somebody's heard of them.
Pretentious.
Yeah, very, very hipster and pretentious. That's okay. When someone finds out what you do, and I mean what you do being a pastor, what's the first question they always ask you?
Oh, that's cool.
And then the conversation ends, right?
And then it's, please, can we talk about anything else? I'm afraid.
Anything other than what I just, yeah, exactly. Alrighty. All right, Ronnie, what is the worst genre of music?
Oh, man. For me, it's easily probably country.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, what wastes the most time in your day? Podcast interviews.
Probably meetings, even though they have to happen and you do them. But sometimes you just think, oh boy.
Yeah. All of those decorator committee meetings. Right?
Yeah, luckily we don't have committees.
Yeah.
I was able, when you plant your own church, you can say,
you're not Baptist.
let me put this into our bylaws. We will never have a committee.
Yes. Good bylaws. Let's all sign off on that right now. Okay. What is one thing that you resent paying for the most?
Oh man, that's such a great question. It's so funny, isn't it? Because I know you want one word answer. Sorry, but
no, you're fine.
It's funny because there are some things you pay more for that you don't care about, And there's some things you pay less for that for some reason it doesn't make any logical sense. It just drives you up the wall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I shouldn't have to pay for this.
Yeah, it does. Well, I shouldn't have to pay for it. Like car registration just feels nuts to me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, since moving to Ohio, I actually don't mind it because in California it was $400 per car. And when I lived there, I was born and raised there. And then in Ohio, it's $40. So I almost feel like it's free here now.
Yeah, right.
So
that's right. It's all perspective.
It's all perspective. So I mean, I pay that $40 and I'm almost happy because I still remember paying $400.
Take my money.
Literally, I feel like, man, it's just free. Why are you even charging the $40?
Right.
It's so free.
Might as well. I'm gonna go out to eat after this.
Exactly. I'm $360 up every time I pay registration.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. That's right. Well, and that's interesting because whenever I get a gift card for anything, right, my wife's mentality is, all right, you have $50 to spend on something. My mentality is, no. I have $50 off something.
Well, so on that, this is what cracks me up since you just started it.
Yeah,
it's really funny when like you go someplace and that you see like you go to buy something and they tell you like what you're saving. It's like, I'm not saving. Like that's not money that's going into my savings account.
It's like, do I get that in cash back? Like,
right? Like I'm not technically saving a dime. This is just what I'm spending to buy this. Right. But I'm not saving like $150.
No.
Like when you buy a car, you're saving $3,000. No, I'm really not.
And if I am, I just lost it by driving it off the lot.
Correct.
It's gone.
Correct.
All right, Ronnie. Weird question. If you were a professional wrestler, what would your entrance theme song be?
Oh man. You know what I always love? It's you see it on a lot of movie trailers now, where I think I've talked about it on the rant, where like it's just this thing that goes.
It's the Christopher Nolan. Yeah, it's the Christopher Nolan trailer sound.
But there's so many trailers now that do that when they're trying to build tension because it's like a real like dramatic, suspenseful kind of film.
That's right.
So I just would that'll be the one for when I go up and do my wrestling gig.
Okay. Yeah. All right. It's just earth-shattering bass.
It's like so much tension. Like, oh my gosh, who is getting ready to walk up? You know.
That's right.
That's what I want to walk up to do. Preach a sermon. With,
dude, yes. Oh, man, that's great.
If we were one of those churches.
Yes, if you were one of those.
If we were Stephen Furtick, I would walk up. I'd walk up every. He's a Baptist, by the way. I don't know if you knew that, but we would walk up every Sunday with that thing in the background.
Dude, yes, like, and then just like sprawl out on a futon and be like, today we're talking about.
Holding my mic.
Holding your mic in your nice shoes. Okay, moving on. Let's see. All right, coffee or tea?
Coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon.
Oh, both. Okay. All right. What fashion trend needs to be brought back?
Oh, dude. I mean, everything has been brought back. I would say
parachute pants have not yet.
You know what? That's actually
I'm holding out for that.
That's a good point. Well, I think hip hop community has kind of like done that a little bit more, but
have they? Okay.
Have they?
I mean, I haven't seen the full blown like MC Hammer parachute pants.
I'm trying to think of what I used to wear that I want to wear that I'm not able to wear, and the problem is I'm literally wearing the same thing as I was when I was 15. I'm wearing Levi's, I'm wearing Chuck Taylors,
amazing.
And I'm wearing a hoodie. And it's like, that's just what I used to wear.
Like, no, this is good. Nothing needs to come back.
It's just like, it's always in style. So that one's too hard for me to answer, man. I don't know.
Okay, no, that's fine. All right. What does your perfect breakfast look like?
I mean, a big, beautiful, beautiful stack of pancakes.
Oh, my man.
I mean, just with butter and syrup. I always tell my wife, like, man, I'm not putting this on her, but I said, like, if I just woke up every morning and the smell of that was in the house, I would never be tired in the morning. I would pop out of bed just literally happy and just full of life and ready to take on whatever was in front of me.
Bring on the decoration committee meetings.
I could do a deck committee meeting every day.
Bring on Money Finger Dolores. Like I have been set up.
Like I'm ready to go. I'm feeling really full and I'm technically feeling sick to my stomach and I need a nap.
But I'm in no pain.
But I'm in no pain. Right. I feel moderately and mildly happy.
That's right. Okay, so we have a listener question. I'm supposed to get a firm commit release date on a new Foxglove Hunt album.
Oh. Well, that's interesting.
I don't know what you want to tell him.
Well,
he's listening. Tell him, shut him down. Shut him down.
No, I'm not even shutting him down. So Rob Witham, who's the other my bandmate in the Foxglove Hunt, we've recently in the past 6 months been talking about a time to come together and record a new album.
There you go.
So it could happen. It's been a while.
It could happen.
Yeah.
It is in discussion phase.
It's in discussion phase.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. All right, Ronnie. If you could disinvent one thing, what would it be?
High-fiving. High-fiving makes me ashamed to be a man. Like when dudes do it super hard, hard where you can hear the clapping sound like a mile away. I mean, that is a use of testosterone that I wish would die.
It's always followed up with them calling you brother.
Bro. Yeah, it's
brother,
like...
dude.
Yeah, I just...
High five, dude.
that masculine, painful... Let's like prove our manhood by hitting each other on the hand as hard as we can.
It's the high five, clinch in, arm around the back, and then slap your back like 3 times as hard as possible.
It's very
right?
It's very exclusionary. So when somebody high fives, it usually means that they're a part of something they accomplished that
right.
you
It's like it's like what a team does, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I hate teams, so that's my problem.
That's right.
You know.
You hate
I'm an individual
teams.
sport guy. I'm an American.
That's right.
I'm a westernized individual that likes individual sports. So.
All right. One fast food chain has to close. Go.
Well, for me, it would probably just be McDonald's because I literally never go there. And I'm not saying it's because it's not delicious. I just don't ever go there.
I thought you had like the tradition, like the on Thanksgiving morning or Christmas morning, like the one McDonald's.
We
sandwich.
do. It is tradition for us to. Yeah, it is tradition for us to go to McDonald's and do that. So let me take that back. That's good insight, man.
I'm just looking out for your wife, man.
No, I appreciate
that's
that, and she would be really depressed about that. That is the one time we do go to McDonald's. That's
there you
true.
Go.
I'm trying to think of a chain that I don't really ever go to. You know what? Arby's. I don't think I've ever eaten at Arby's. Literally, maybe ever in my life.
That's a popular one. I've gotten that. That and Burger King seem to be the winners on this.
But you know what though?
So.
A Whopper is a heck of a burger though. I would argue that.
It's kind of the quintessential like
it's
a
80s,
90s burger.
It's a good burger for a fast food burger. It's legit. It feels like they care about the meat a little bit more at BK.
They care about the meat a little bit more.
It's a decent burger. I'm not going to lie.
It's true. No, I hear you. Okay, in what situation or place would you find yourself most out of place in?
Gosh, I shouldn't even say this in the circles I'm in, but I'm going to. But I'm finishing up a degree at Trinity right now, and I've had to spend time on campus.
Sure.
And I'm not, I'm the least frat boy.
Yeah.
oriented person that I've ever met in my life.
Okay.
And so when I'm
not going to many frat parties, that's not.
Yeah,
your thing,
when I'm in any campus situation, I always feel like, oh, you were not made for this, Ronnie Martin. I always just feel like there's this weird kind of cultural thing with guys whose lives are really formed by that I feel like they never can kind of like ever get rid of it. And so when I'm around dudes that were really formed by that, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
okay. Sorry if that's you, Josh. I don't.
It's not me at all.
I don't know you all enough to even know that. But.
No, unfortunately, they all become pastors. Is the problem? And they all moved to the Seattle area. They all moved to the Seattle area.
Right.
It's the frat.
They moved to Seattle area. Their name's Mark, and they become pastors. I understand.
Your name is Mark. Yes, that's right.
I get it.
Oh, all the Marks out there. Come on, people. Okay. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'd like to know, what is your personal favorite Joy Electric album?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really liked what I did on this album we did called The Ministry of Archers back in 2005, yes. I think. I was really able to, if I could look at an album and say, hey, did you kind of accomplish what you were aiming at, what was in your mind with that particular record? That record is probably the record where I can say, yeah, I kind of did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I have to say my favorite album of yours is The Otherly Opus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Love it. I love it.
Thank
and
you. I like that record too. But.
Ushering into the Magical Area is the best track on that album.
Oh, wow.
It's so good. I love
that's
it.
Nice. That's nice. And I've not heard a lot of people say the title of that song over the years, so that's props to you, man.
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
it's
props
good stuff.
To you.
Well, Ronnie, we have come to the end of the podcast, my friend. It's been a joy having you on.
Likewise,
I really
thank
appreciate
you
it.
for having me, man. It's been really fun talking to you. Thanks for giving me the time.
All right. Well, hey, everyone, you know what you guys can do. You can head on over to iTunes and leave a raving review for us. We really appreciate that. You don't have to, but we appreciate it. And you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Music, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcast, we are there. Head on over to facebook.com/everydayamondaypodcast, Instagram at everydayamondaypod. Thank you all for joining us in the trenches today, and we will catch you on the next step of Every Day a Monday.